Hey guys, I'm Manoj and welcome back to another awesome episode from the course C Sharp and .NET for Beginners. This is really going to be an interesting episode because we are going to discuss about project dependencies. Till now, in each of the previous episodes, we have created a standalone console application. By standalone, I mean that we have not added any additional dependencies to the default project template. But when you work on any real world applications, most probably every project will have some dependencies. There are two most common ways to add dependencies to a project. One option is to add project reference and the other option is to add reference to a NuGet package. In this episode, we are going to talk about class library, how to add a project reference to a class library, and how to reference a NuGet package from a project. I am sure you will like this episode and you will find this episode helpful. So let's get started. So in this first section, we are going to talk about class library project. Let's first understand why do we need a class library project. So let's take an example. Let's say there is a company, Contoso Corp, and this company works on many applications. One of the application is a ToDo application, and like any other ToDo application, this ToDo application also has a functionality in which users can add their own tasks and plan their agenda. This company, Contoso Corp, started their application as a web application. So they have all the functionality ready, and now the company has decided to launch a desktop application. Now because the ToDo application functionality was small and simple, all the code for web application is part of a single project, the web application project. Now there is a separate team which is supposed to work on the desktop application, and that team decided that they will copy the source code, full business logic from web application project into the desktop application project. Simple solution, right? So let's move forward. So the source code is copied from web application project to the desktop application, and both the projects are now working. But few days later, web application team figured out some issues in the ToDo functionality. So they fixed the issue in the web application project. But desktop application team was not aware. So what happened? There are now two different versions of the same business functionality. There is one version in the desktop application which has the issue, and there is another version in the web application where the issue is already fixed. Now let's say even if desktop application gets to know about the issues and they want to fix the issue, they will have to fix the issues on their own, or at least they will have to copy the source code again from web application project. So this approach involves an extra work to monitor that the two copies of the source code are in sync. Also, if we have to do any enhancements or if we found out any issues, we always have to make sure that those issues have been fixed at both the places. Over the time, the functionality will grow, and that's why it would become more and more difficult to handle the two versions of the source code. Also, in this scenario, we considered only two different platforms, web and desktop applications. What if this functionality is required to be available on other platforms as well? Let's say Android or iOS. It would create more copies of the same source code, making it more difficult to manage the source code. Now the obvious question in this case is, can we avoid duplication of the source code? And is it possible to make a single copy of source code and reuse it in all the applications which are targeting to multiple platforms? The solution to this problem is create a class library project. That project should contain all the reusable business logic. So the reason why we should use the class library is to enable the separation of concerns by putting logically related code in a single library and to enable the reuse of the source code. For example, in the previous scenario that we have discussed, the Contoso Corp ToDo application can have a class library which interacts with the database and saves the tasks to the database. And they can also have some other library for sending notifications and reminders to the end users. And there can be many more class libraries. Technically, we can embed everything in a single class library. But practically, it is a good idea to have a class library project which is dedicated for one purpose. Now, class library project cannot contain main method. Main method is always part of the driving platform project. In case of console application, the main method will be part of console application project. In case of web applications, the main method will be part of web application project. And in case of desktop applications, the main method will be part of desktop application project. The class library is supposed to contain only the logic which needs to be reused. Now there is one more thing before we move further. There are three different types of class libraries. One is platform specific libraries. These libraries have access to all the APIs from a given platform. For example, a .NET Framework class library will have access to all the APIs that is exposed on a Windows platform. Or let's say Xamarin iOS library will have access to all the APIs which are supported on iOS devices. These type of class libraries can be used by only those applications which target to that specific platform. The second type of class libraries are portable class libraries. Now these type of class libraries may not support all the APIs supported by a particular platform. But the advantage here is same class library can be used in the applications which are targeting to multiple platforms. And then there is a third type of class library, .NET Standard Class Library, which is basically kind of merger of previous two categories. And it tries to provide best from previous two categories of class libraries. I think we have understood why we need class libraries. We also have seen what are different types of class libraries and what a class library should contain. Now let's move to the coding session to see how to create a class library and how to reference it in the console application project. So let's create a console application. Let's name it a ToDo console app. Now I am going to add a ToDo item class here. This class has ID, name, and description properties. These three properties define the ID and name and description of a task. Then I can also add a planned on property. This is of type datetime, which signifies the date and time at which this task is planned. And also I can add a Boolean property here indicating whether this particular task is done or not. Now I can add another class in this console application, ToDo items manager. This class has a private read-only field which is a list of ToDo items. Now we already have discussed about the read-only keyword in the previous episode. Now if you want, you can always go back to the previous episode to know more about the read-only keyword. Okay, in this demo, we are not going to save the ToDo items to database. As this code is only for demonstration purpose, it is fine. But if you are working on any real world application, it is better to save the ToDo items list into a file or database. Now in this ToDo items manager class, I will add some methods quickly to add, update and delete the ToDo items from this list. And I will also add a method here getAll, which returns the list of all the ToDo items which are currently available in the list. Okay, our ToDo items manager class is now ready. Now in the main method, I can create instance of ToDo items manager. Now this instance can be used to add, update or remove the tasks from the ToDo list. So I will add some ToDo items to the list by calling add method. And then I will try to modify a couple of them. And then I will also add a couple of lines to delete from existing ToDo list. Now, although we have hard coded all the entries here, we can easily modify the code and read the inputs from the user. Now I will also add some logic to get the list of existing items and show them on the console. Okay, our code is now ready. As you see, I have hard coded all the data here in the main method. But if you want, you can easily modify this program to read the user inputs instead of hard coding the data. Okay. Now all our functionality is ready, the application is building and I can also run the application. But currently all our business functionality, which is inside these two classes, is in the console application project. Now as we know, the business functionality which is written inside these two files can be used by a console application or a phone application or a web application also. But currently it cannot be reused because it is part of only console application. So to enable the reuse, here we can use a class library project. So let's try to add a new class library project to this solution. There are two common ways by which we can add a class library project to a solution. We can either click on File menu and then select Add and then select New Project, and it will open the wizard for adding a new project. Or otherwise, what we can do is we can right click on the solution file here in the Solution Explorer and then select Add and then select New Project from the submenu. It will also open the same New Project wizard. This wizard provides a search box in which we can type the name of the template that we want. So I can just search by the text class library and I will be able to see the corresponding templates. The other way is to select appropriate values in these three dropdowns. So let's use dropdowns for the sake of this demo. I will select C# language in the first dropdown and all platforms in the second dropdown. And in the third dropdown, let's select library. This will show many different types of templates. There is a WPF class library which works only on Windows. There is a Razor class library which can be used in web application projects. Here in this list, we can select the first option. This is a template for a class library that targets .NET Standard or .NET. As mentioned earlier, .NET Standard class library provides best set of APIs from multiple platforms. So I will select this template and I will click on Next. On the next screen, we can provide the library project name. Let's say here we want name to be ToDo app.library. We can also choose the directory in which this project should be placed. Ideally, this project should be placed inside the solution directory, the directory in which SLN file is present. For the sake of this demo, let's keep the default value and click on Next. Now on this last screen, wizard is asking us to select the target framework. We can target the .NET Standard or any other .NET version. Let's keep the default .NET 6 here and then click on Create. So the class library project has been added to our solution. This project contains one empty class file, class1.cs. We don't need this file, so let's delete it. Now, as already stated, our business functionality is written in two different classes, ToDo item class and ToDo items manager class. And currently they are in console app project. And we want to move them from console app project to the library project. So one way is we can just drag and drop the file like this. As soon as we drop the file on the library project, it will create the copy of the file. In this case, we have two copies of this ToDo item class. One copy is present in the console app and the other copy has been created due to drag and drop operation is present in the class library project. I will delete this copy from the console app. Now let's say if we don't want to manually delete this file. We want Visual Studio to move the file, and while moving the file we want Visual Studio to not to retain original file. So for that, let's select the file by clicking on it and then press the Shift key from the keyboard. And while the Shift key is pressed, drag and drop file to the project or the folder in which we want it to move. In this case, I will drop this file to this class library project. As soon as the file is dropped, Visual Studio shows a dialog asking to confirm this move operation. Let's click on OK. Now we can see that the file is not present in the console application project. It is present only inside the class library project. So we have moved all the business functionality related classes into a class library, but still there is one issue. These two classes were part of console application. Let's open any one file that we have moved, and we can see that the namespace which is declared in this file is still same as the default namespace from the console application. Ideally, we should change this namespace declaration and we should use the default namespace from this class library. Generally, the default namespace is basically the project name, and that's why I will change this namespace to todoapp.library. And I will open other file also, and there as well I will change the namespace to todoapp.library. Okay, our class library is ready now. Our console app does not contain any business functionality. It contains only main method which drives the program, and all our business functionality is part of class library. But now if I try to build the solution, I get errors. Why? Because now the console application cannot find ToDo items manager class. And we know that in such cases, we need to add a using statement at the top. But only adding a using statement will not be sufficient in this case. because it is sufficient only if the class is part of same project. So what can we do now? We will have to add class library project as a dependency in this console application. And how can we do that? Now let's go to Solution Explorer and expand the console application project. Inside that, we can see the dependencies node. Right click on the dependencies node and from the context menu, select Add Project Reference. When we click on Add Project Reference, it will open a wizard. From this Add Reference wizard, we can select the class library project by checking this checkbox. Now click on OK. Now we can see that there is a new child node inside dependencies. And that child node is projects. If we expand that projects node, we can see the names of all project dependencies which are required for this console application project. Now any type of project template can have dependencies. Here I have demonstrated how to add reference to a class library from a console application project. In real world projects, you may want to add a dependency of a class library into another class library. Or you may want to add multiple class libraries references into a single web application project. And all of that is possible. You need to follow the same steps which are mentioned here. Now our console application has reference to this class library. Now we will have to add the using statements at the top to import the namespaces from the class library. So I can add using ToDo app.library and semicolon at the top. And we can see that ToDo items manager class is resolved. Now if I try to build the program builds successfully. We can also run the program and we can see that program is still working as expected. So we have successfully extracted our business logic from the console application to a class library project. So tomorrow, if we want to create a new web application project which helps in managing to-do list, then we can just reuse this class library. The new web application project will not have to worry about the functionality which is written in the class library. They can just focus on creating the appropriate user interface. So in this section, we have seen what is a class library, how to create a new class library, and how to add reference to an existing class library. Now let's move on. Now in this section, let's talk about NuGet Packages. You might have come across various package managers. For example, NPM, which is used in JavaScript-based single-page applications. NuGet is similar concept for .NET applications. NuGet is a package manager for .NET. Using NuGet, you can bring many already implemented packages to your program. For example, now that we have a console application which manages a to-do list, we may want to export that to-do list in the form of a JSON file or maybe in the form of an Excel document. Exporting anything to Excel document format is very common problem, and hence there is a possibility that there is already a NuGet package which takes a collection object as input and then exports that collection in the form of an Excel document. Of course, you have option to write your own code, but writing your own code may involve a lot of work and it will consume a lot of your time. Instead of spending time on such functionality, you can better use a NuGet package and then the saved time can be then used for focusing the development of business functionality. Now the obvious question here is, how do we have these packages available for our use? Simple answer, some developers or some companies would have published this package to NuGet.org. NuGet.org is the public NuGet package repository. This NuGet package repository can be used by anyone. If we go to that site, we can see that there are huge number of packages available there. In case you want to create your own NuGet package, you will have to publish and host that package to this public package repository. Here, if I click on Packages tab, we can see the commonly used and downloaded packages. We can see who is the author of that package, we can see how many times this package was downloaded, and we can also see when this package was updated last time. These NuGet packages can also be added as dependencies in our projects. There is an interesting package called as Humanizer. This package can help us to humanize the date, time, or the numbers. This package offers humanization of any kind of data. It doesn't matter whether the data that we want to humanize is a string or a date, time, or a number. We can still use the APIs provided by this package. And this package can output the humanized data into multiple languages. Now let's try to add this Humanizer package to our console application project. We can go to Visual Studio and let's go to Solution Explorer, then expand the console app project node, and then right click on the dependencies. This will open a context menu. From the context menu, select Manage NuGet Packages option. It will open a new screen in the Visual Studio. On this new screen, there are three tabs: Browse, Install, and Updates. Browse is for browsing the NuGet packages from public repository. We can also browse the packages from private repository. We will just have to change the package source here. Installed tab shows the installed packages for this project, and Updates tab shows the packages for which newer versions are available. For now, let's select Browse tab and then search for Humanizer. There is a package humanizer.core which is language neutral and it has English language specific resources. So let's add reference to humanizer.core. Now we are not adding reference to the Humanizer package because if we use that, it will add all the other packages which support multiple languages, but we don't need support for multiple languages, and that's why I am choosing humanizer.core. Now after the package is selected, on the right hand side we can see the versions available. If I open this drop down, we can see there are various versions available of this package. Let's select the latest stable version. Now below the versions drop down, there is some additional information. There is information about version and the date on which this version was published. There is information about authors, and there is also information about dependencies that are needed by this package version. Now let's click on Install button. The package download will start, and then Visual Studio will show us preview of all the packages which will be installed as a part of this operation. Let's click on OK, and we can see that the package is successfully installed. Now in the Solution Explorer, inside the dependencies, we can see a new child node, Packages. If I expand this node, I can see the NuGet package dependencies required by this project. Okay, I will add few statements of code to demonstrate how this package can be used. So let's say I get current date time by using datetime.now, and then let's say I subtract 2 minutes from it. And on this new datetime object, I can call humanize method. Now for calling this humanize method, I will have to include the namespace. So I will hit Ctrl dot on my keyboard and Visual Studio will give me suggestion. I will click on the suggestion and it will import the namespace for me. Now this humanize method is an extension method that is provided by Humanizer package. This humanize method is available in various forms. It can accept variety of data and then it can humanize that data. Similarly, I can try to singularize some word and pluralize some other word. Here you can see that I can call these methods directly on string type variable. And finally, I can call Pascalize and Camelize methods to change the casing of the string. And now if I run the application, we can see that all the inputs were humanized. Of course, we could have written this functionality by ourselves, but then it would have taken considerable amount of time from us. Because this NuGet package is available, you can imagine how much time we have saved. Now, let's go to Solution Explorer again and let's remove the package reference from the console application. For that, let's go to Dependencies node and expand the packages, and inside packages, select the package that we want to remove and either hit delete button from the keyboard, or we can right click on the dependency and then select remove. So the NuGet package dependency now is removed from the console application. Now we can add the same dependency to our class library project. Now after adding the dependency, we can change the getAll method from ToDo items manager. We can use Humanizer to humanize the planned on date. Okay, that is also done. Now our console application has reference to the class library and class library has reference to the NuGet package. Now because of this relationship, our console application can still use Humanizer package if we want. And that's why console app is still compiling without any issues. Now you can try to run this application and you can also try variety of inputs to see how Humanizer package can help you to make the data more readable. Okay, that's it from this section. Let's move on. Now this section has some assignments that you can try on your own. The first assignment is to create a class library. Let's say util.library. It should contain 3 different utilities. The first utility is temperature conversion utility to convert temperature values from one scale to another. It can also have a circle utility to calculate area and circumference of the circle. And it can also have math operations utility to perform 4 basic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Then use this class library in the console application project. Now for the second assignment, you can write a program where user can enter a number and then program should print the same number in words. For example, if user enters 1, 2, 3, then the program should print 123. And one hint for you, you can use a NuGet package for this. Now the third assignment is interesting. We created a ToDo application in the code along session. It has ToDo items manager. Add a new method export to Excel in that manager class. Then use a NuGet package to export the list of ToDo items to an Excel document. And in the comment section, you can let me know which NuGet package you have used for this. Now let's move on to the final section. This slide shows summary of what we have discussed in this episode. We have seen why a class library is required. We also have seen what are different types of class libraries. And then we have seen how to create a class library project and then use it as a dependency in any other project. In the second section, we have seen what are NuGet packages and how NuGet packages can be consumed. We also have seen that project dependencies are transitive. So if project A is referencing project B and project B is referencing project C or any other NuGet package, then project A can use APIs from project C or the NuGet package which is referenced by project B. So friends, that's it for this episode. I have tried to cover most of the basics that you would need to get started on project dependencies. If you want to know about anything that is not covered in this episode, then please comment and let me know. Alright guys, that's it for this episode. I hope you find this information helpful. Thanks for watching. If you are liking the content, then let the YouTube know by liking and sharing the contents. Also subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates from this channel. And if you have any feedback or any suggestions, please let me know via comments. Alright guys, see you in the next episode. Namaste.